Hello, compliments of the season. Welcome to 2023. We all made it into this season and we are grateful for that. You're welcome to another series of the Follow Me to Africa conversations. As you know, this is a conversation series that is brought to you by Cliff Not TV in the diaspora. And Cliff Not TV is CliffNote.com is a platform that brings together Africans in the diaspora and on the continent to get to appreciate and celebrate each other's achievement. So if you have not yet signed up, I encourage you to sign up today so that you don't miss up on any one of our conversations and programs. So my name is Ankweta Beatrice Achaleke. I am the serial author of the Africa for Smart Kids book series, publisher of Globuntu Books, founder of Follow Me to Africa, and your host for these conversations. I am super delighted that we are starting a brand new series of conversations for this season. And there are a couple of new things that we have brought into the conversations. And that is the fact that the conversations now take place in the afternoon at 5 p.m. GMT. So any one of you joining from any other time zone, you can join the conversations live if you sign up on CliffNote TV in the CliffNoteTV.com. So the second new thing about this conversation is that we are having an open conversation and we go with the flow based on the storyline of our guest. And what we promise you is that we bring you incredible Africans with whom we spotlight Africa. We bring you inside. We talk about opportunities and possibilities. We share dreams and how people and challenges overcome. We share lessons learned, and we give you all the kind of information that will allow you to own your African story, to own your African identity, to understand the importance of Africa in world geographics and politics, and to know what greatness Africa represents. And if you're a person of African descent, this is the place where you come to get every knowledge, every conversation, and every word that will challenge you to pack your suitcases and join us in Africa, because this is the Follow Me to Africa conversation. So my guest for today, it's we go very far back. So we are schoolmates, we attended school, and in this conversation I'm certainly going to ask him, when we were back in Bojongo, if he thought that he was going to become the person that he is today. So before I introduce you to him, we are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, you get to meet my guest who is joining us all the way from Canada, and then the conversation will be on. So let's take a quick break.
Clevenard in Diaspora Television is an internet online TV service. What sets us apart is a unique combination of hit African content, first and exclusive international free movies, series, musics, news, events, documentaries, tourism, teleshopping shows, youth TV programs, and live interviews. Clevenard Diaspora Television is available throughout sub-Saharan Africa and to the diaspora markets worldwide. Take your entertainment with you wherever you go. Watch on your smartphone, tablet, laptop, smart TV, depending on your device. Watch free movies with Clevenard Movies Television. Stop searching for free movies websites and watch Clevenard Movies Television. Watch your favorite African shows anywhere at any time. Don't forget to check out our top 5 TV channels created to get you informed. TV1, Clevenard in Diaspora Television. TV2, Clevenard Youth Television. TV3, Clevenard Movies Television. TV4, Clevenard Teleshopping Television. TV5, Clevenard Tourism Television. To start watching, sign up at www.clevenard.com and follow the easy steps. Once you're done, log into the Clevenard website or app on your device. Click on any one of our 5 TV channels and hit play. We will be very satisfied and happy to welcome you to our team as one of our new business partners. Contact info@clevenard.com +34 631 279811. Website www.clevenard.com.
Welcome back to Follow Me to Africa Conversations. My name is Ankreta Beatrice Achaleke. I am your host, and this is our first conversation of this season. If you're just joining in, please make sure that you sign and share, bring your friends so that we can have this conversation together. So now it's time to go meet my guest in Canada. Sam, welcome to the conversation. How are you doing today?
I am doing very well. A little cold, but doing very well. Thank you so much for having me on the program, Beatrice.
So, this is the Follow Me to Africa conversation, and anyone who is out there who complains about the cold, the first thing I say is, come back home.
Yes, and we've made some serious inroads into that in pursuit of that invitation. So I guess we'll be talking a little bit more about it.
Okay, so before we get into that, I would love for our listeners, our audience, to get to meet you. Again, I was saying you and I go a very way back. For the fact that we attended boarding school together. We were in a dormitory school. We spent 5 years together in an incredible environment that gave us so much, so much that makes who we are today. So I would like to invite you, Sam, to quickly introduce yourself. Who is Sam Tita?
Sam Tita is a businessman in Canada, married for 33 years, 4 children, all grown. The youngest is 31. Grandchildren. I preach as a Bible teacher, pastor. We own businesses in Canada. We do business across Canada, the United States. We're in Cameroon. We just launched some business ventures down there. Sam Tita is also a serial author. I think I've written now 7 books. And we have a leadership program that we run as well, which we teach every Saturday, and we teach people around the world on just fulfilling God's call on their lives and being leaders. And what else does Sam Tita do? I think that's about it.
That's quite a lot. You put it in a few words, but when you look at the scope, the extent, the impact of those words, it's quite a lot that you've said. Now let's start right here. Sam Tita is a grandparent as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So what is it like parenting as an African in the diaspora and becoming a grandparent? Let's just start from there.
It's when Naomi and I got married, we were 20 years old. And when I look back now, I was like a child having children. My mother thought I was a kid then. I didn't want to hear it. I thought I was a full-grown man. So you can imagine that. But, we look back now, and having grandchildren is a beautiful thing, because the things we fretted about, we worried about when we were young. I remember when the twins were born here, because my older kids were born in Cameroon. The twins that were born here, I was driving at like maybe 10 kilometers an hour from the hospital to get home. I was so terrified. It was so scary for me. But today, obviously, looking at grandchildren and helping to raise them, knowing that, we know so much now that we didn't know then, a lot more experience. We don't have to be as stressed. And of course, even economically, we're in a much, much different place. And so, yeah, it's a beautiful thing. It was a bit stressful raising children because we were so young, but, helping to see our grandchildren grow, that is a beautiful thing.
That's a journey that some of us we're still very far behind. We hope to get there someday, but in the meantime, congratulations on all those achievements and the work that you do, and being a serial author as well. So let me take you back to our schooling days back then in Bojongo. What was your vision of life, and has it turned out to be what you anticipated back then?
It is turning out now to be what I anticipated. We had tremendous difficulty moving here, a young person, no real guidance. I'm thinking in retrospect, I would have done better if I had maybe completed university in Cameroon before leaving Cameroon. But I came here, ran into trying to build a life. Fortunately for me, it wasn't very long after I came, I met Naomi, and life would have been unbearable, I think, otherwise. Um, growing up back in those days, our parents wanted us to either become accountants or engineers or medical doctors. That's the African thing. And in my mind, though, I always knew deep down I wanted to be not the richest guy in the world, but an influencer of people. I wanted to be that person that would speak and it would carry weight and be able to help people navigate life towards betterment. Somewhere deep down, I always wanted that. But like I said, life took over and it became more important to have achieved the things that parents aspire for their children and to raise a family and all of that stuff, and became a stockbroker, bank manager early in life, and then our things kind of crashed and collapsed, and then we started rebuilding again. But in my later years, I'd say sometime after I crossed 40 was when I began to feel again the comfort that gave me a chance to breathe and to think. I was no longer in survival mode. Let's make sure we have enough money. Let's make sure we buy a home. Let's make sure we have a car, that kind of thing. I had gotten to the point where we had those things.
Hello there. Looking for an African movie? Search no further. Clevenard African Movies TV is here for you. We are dedicated to the acceleration of African films, TV series, documentaries, and lots more. Explore our movies at home or on the go. Clevenard Movies is free to watch on clevenard.com. Don't miss this opportunity. Hurry now. Sign up and subscribe today.
Hit 40 years old, it became, I felt like I had breathing space and I could begin to find out again from Sam who he actually was. What were the things that gave me satisfaction? Growing up as a young person, back in the school days at Bojongo, what was it that I really desired? What did I want to become? And, to say I didn't want to become, what I call it, a politician, the leader of a country. I didn't want to become the Pope or any such thing. But how do you know who you want to be? That person with great influence who can speak and actually move people towards their destinies. Writing, which was a passion of mine, sounded like it was going to be that vehicle. And so I think by that point I had written at least one book and I continued writing. So I'm on my 7th now. I'm not as quite as fast as you. I think you've crossed 25 or something. But so that has been the journey. I found that in my mid ages, I began to really realize, my voice again. To the point of this is where we are now, and by God's grace are able to speak across nations and be able to help people.
Incredible. So, and Sam has mentioned books. He's a serial author. We are certainly going to come back on another conversation where we will put the spotlight on one particular book that I think has a lot of messages for all Africans, especially those of us returning back to the continent. Those of us returning to the continent, there are certain things out of Sam's book that we really need to take into our suitcases because it makes us become conscious homecomers. And when you're a conscious homecomer, you show up differently, you act differently, you behave differently, and you approach people and the environment that you're coming back to from a different angle. So we will certainly come back to that. Sam, you've done so many things. And again, I'm still looking at, those of us in Bojongo back then, when you're going to the dormitory, and then you're going to the refectory, and then you're going from to the service to church, and then you're going to class, and then you have sports in the afternoon. And if you miss any one of that, you're punished. You have to go to the garden. You have to go dig and dig and dig while others are doing sports. And then we used to have the social evenings on Saturdays where you can perform all kinds of, all the kinds of social activities that were allowed in a Catholic boarding school.
Right.
What you say you took from that environment that made you to who you are today?
A whole lot, because even in my back then, I used to. We had the school magazine called the Bugle, which was my first foray into expressing from my insights, my thoughts, and people actually reading and appreciating it, because I used to write poetry back then in the Bugle, and eventually becoming the social prefect when I got to high school. And the last year of college, I was the social prefect there, and the skills that I learned there, seeing so many people. I remember you so clearly. You were one of the studious ones, didn't do a lot of the stuff that some other people our age were into. Yeah. That's what I remember seeing. That you are where you are today doesn't surprise me at all. You were always a very serious person, and you can see the difference when you meet even people that we went to school with and associate with. You can see where people are in life. A lot has to do with where they were even back then. So for me, it has made definitely a lot of powerful contributions, but that's on the positive side. Now, on the negative, well, ultimately positive, because there are things that I saw there growing up, going to school there, that I thought, you know what, man, there is no way I want to live like this. Dormitory life was fun, but it wasn't always the most sanitary, things, some of those things, and I wanted better. I wanted better. So I think those things, coupled with the fact of a mother who was very strict and very clean, it makes me want to live life a particular way. So how we even organize our space in our office, at home, in the businesses that we have in Cameroon, we create environments that when a person comes to, if you drop something on the floor, you can pick it up, just dust it off, and put it in your purse. You don't have to cringe because of the way the environment. So the way the environment is. So there are things that I learned there that have propelled me either way, whether the things that I liked or the things I didn't like. They've all propelled me towards who I am today. And of course, ending up being a Bible teacher myself and a preacher. Of course, we went to church twice a day, 7 days a week.
Yes,
So
sir.
what choice did I have, Beatrice, than to become a Bible teacher?
Sam, let me tell you something. Since I left Bojongo, I've not set my feet in the church.
Wow.
I rebelled. I said I did church for the rest of my life, because there were moments when I just did not feel like going to church. But if you don't, you'll be punished.
Yes.
And I was like, come on, God must understand that you don't force people to.
And he does. And he does.
In any way. So back to the conversation. So I'm taking you back again. For
Yes.
those of you who are listening, who may be in your teens, or you may be in schools, you may be parents. The reason why we have these conversations is not just to activate, to inspire, to encourage, to uplift adults, but also those who are parenting. People who are at crossroads, because we have gone through a more than 2.5 years pandemic that has changed our lives forever. whether we like it or not. And so many things that we planned have become obsolete. So we do these conversations to encourage those of you who are out there listening, so you can pick up something that can become that seed that you planned, that allowed you to harvest something different tomorrow, if you're not in a healthy space right now. So we Sam, agree with me that ambition and success comes from a place of lack. When you are in a space where you think this is not mine, there is no fun being in this kind of space, that pushes you to do something different so that you can have different results. So that being said, I just want to us to go back to that time in school. Again, I know I had some conversations. We had friends, and I remember one of my friends, we used to say, we're going to go to Harvard, we're going to do this, we're going to do. We had no clue what Harvard was, or where Harvard was, or what it needed to be able to get to Harvard, you know. But again, we do have dreams, and some of these dreams, that take us either through different pathways to where we're going, or some people go straight. So what would you say have been the biggest challenge that you encountered along the way, and how did you overcome it, or how are you overcoming it?
I think for me, the biggest challenge was perhaps, and this is it may not make sense, but I've had the privilege of analyzing myself. My biggest challenge was being too confident, being too intelligent. In the sense, now, before your audience, turn off and say, who does this guy think he is? But
You were intelligent, though. You
I
were one of the
always
most intelligent back then. I know.
thank you. Listen, I'm 53 years old right now, Beatrice. Let me give you a context. I feel today as though if I made up my mind tomorrow to become a medical doctor, I will become a medical doctor. If I decided today I wanted to become an astronaut, I have what it takes to invest the time, especially now the children are grown, and it's just Naomi and me. I can put in the time and become the astronaut. This is just how I feel about myself. So imagine this young person who my whole life, from the day I was in kindergarten, I was always the first in class. I got into school first here, first there, all of that stuff. I could write, I could speak, I was athletic, all of these things. And I just felt like, I didn't have to struggle for much. And the problem with that is because you think you can do anything, you don't do anything to the end. Basically, let's put it this way. If I started writing a book and felt like, this doesn't look like what, James Hartley Chase would write, or it doesn't sound like what Edgar Allan Poe might have written, not good enough, I just chuck it and move on to the next thing, all right? Somebody else would labor through it, would work through it, would do the research, would put in the time and wait to the end. So because of that, I tried so many things, and not because they were not doing well, but because it seemed like they were not meeting my aspirations. I mean, back then I wanted to become this young guy on the cover of Times Magazine. People had dreams. I had dreams too. I wanted to be this young man on the cover of Times Magazine. I wanted to be known around the world. But I had so much confidence that I could do anything that it became a problem. It really wasn't until my mid 30s, when we got into business, that I really made the decision that I was going to focus in on one thing. And that's how the Enrich Building Solutions, that was the genesis of Enrich Building Solutions, because got into the industry, worked with several of the prominent players in the industry, and eventually had learned enough. And Naomi and I decided to strike out on our own in business. And then, thank God, we're able to stay resilient and to keep building to where we are today. But the challenge for me was there was no real pathway It's one thing if you become a journalist or you become an accountant, you become, back in Cameroon, who knew what a stockbroker was? You know what I mean? My path, how do you become a best-selling author? How do you do the things that in my mind somewhere, they weren't very clear, but I knew that I wanted to be someone of influence who could help people and help them move them forward. There was just no clear pathway how that would happen. That for me was the biggest challenge. And then eventually I was able to zero in on one thing, and then things really began to change. Not because I hadn't accomplished a lot back then, but I just never hung on to them. Who walks away from, at 29 years old, I was one of the youngest managers in one of the biggest banks in Canada. And it wasn't very long after I walked away from that job, Beatrice. Who walks away from a job like that? But there I was. I always wanted to do bigger and better things. And then I left.
Someone who has bigger visions, someone who has bigger goals, and someone who believe in themselves, they will do that. They do that. So, but we're saying there's some people out there who may be in that kind of a situation, and especially now that people are coming out of this pandemic, where you think like, okay, everything that was familiar to me is probably gone down the drain. How do I pick up? How do I catch up? How do I, and then we're very much impatient and we want to get things done yesterday that probably need some adaptation time. And so, it can become a challenge, but you having been there and turned it around is the right person to say, give us three key solutions or three key things that you did to be able to get that patience and that resilience to focus on, to zoom in, to focus, and to get to the results that you have today.
I think the first thing for me was really just looking back and seeing people that I considered, perhaps less gifted as myself. They were able to just stay the course. I remember one of the young men that had worked in my department at the bank. I think had about 90-something people working for me, and one of the youngest was a young man who, I remember exactly how much he was paid. I remember exactly what the position was, and he had a bunch of personal life issues. And many years, about 7 years after I had left the bank, I met this young man, and I said, it was so good to see him at a gas station. We chatted. I said, so where are you now? He said, oh, wait a minute. I actually have your job. I am the manager of the, and I thought, look at that. All of the people who were above him, who were impatient, they came, stayed 2-3 years and left. He was the last man standing. He just stayed there until everybody else was tired and had left, and he became the manager of that particular department. So it's things like that. When I look back and realize that so many people, even some of the people we went to school with, they're tremendously successful. But if I look at our school academic life, when I was here at the front, they were 20-something behind me. But I guess understanding that maybe they didn't have too many choices, too many options, they stayed the course and have just done the grind and eventually have gotten to where they have. And they're tremendously successful. So I think one of the things is learn that resilience is, if you don't have it, pray for it. If you don't have it, talk to people who can help you, because touching and leaving, it will get you absolutely nowhere. So be patient. I learned to be patient. That was one thing. And then secondly was learning to take advantage of there are so many business platforms today. Just go on YouTube. My goodness, there are so many things you can find to help you out. We were able to leverage business platforms that compensated for my weaknesses because, first of all, I think coming to realize what your strengths are, that was also very important to me in my case. Recognizing what my strengths are and the things that I was not good at. And majoring on the things that I was good at and the things that I wasn't good at to sub them out to somebody else. So our business model grew from there, where we do project management, we do sales, we do business across Canada, and Canada is a big country. We do business in the US, and we've done business in about 4 different continents now. But we focus on a few things. Because the office space that we have, the things that we do, if we had to have all of our people here, we would be very capital heavy. We would be, just the cost of running the human resources and all of that stuff. It wouldn't make a lot of sense for us. So we learned early on to capitalize on our strengths and to subcontract out everything that we were not very good at. So let other people handle the things that you're not very good at. And these days, it's so much easier than it was for us back then, because there are technology platforms that, you can have your phone calls answered in the Philippines, or in our case in Cameroon. A person calls our office in Toronto, it is answered in Cameroon, and the call bounces back to us here. So those kinds of technologies and platforms are available that enable one to be successful in these days. And then the third thing is just more on the technology side. I was an old school kind of guy, all right, wanting to do things in person, hands-on all the time. And look at this. We're in 3 continents right now having this conversation. You're in Africa, I am in Canada, in North America, and your
Zulu.
Technical team is in Europe. It's crazy. We've done a lot of television here with some of the television stations here. It used to be that, just giant cameras and a big room full of TV equipment was what you needed then. Now, if you're still looking to do stuff old school, even back even 2 years ago, prior to the pandemic, Beatrice, even here in our studio, the reason we have this set up is we have cameras here. We have all the technologies to do all the things that we need to do right here where I'm sitting right now. And then the pandemic hit. And then we realized, wait a minute, I have this $1,400 phone with cameras as good as any that we can use to do so many things. So you have to be able to move with the times, and take advantage of what is out there to help you to get forward. Those are the kinds of things that we've had to do. And I can really look back now and say that, yes, if one were to do these 3 things, there are others, but if you could do these 3 things, I think it would help you to move forward.
Wow. So 3 things. First, build your resilience, be patient, learn how to leverage on, be smart. I'll resume it as being smart and learning how to leverage from different platforms, going away from the traditional, from what we are familiar with, into doing things in a different way. When you are challenged to do so, or if you're not getting the results that you want through the traditional channels that you're going through, and it takes some introspection. It takes some self-analysis. It takes some self-reflection to be able to come to the conclusion that diverting into another, changing your strategy doesn't mean that you're failing. Doesn't mean that you're not on the right track, as long as you know where your destination is and you know that you can get there. Someone said it in a very nice way. I think it's Lisa Nichol. She says, be stubborn about your goal and flexible about your methodology. And I think it really says all of it. And I know we're still on the conversation. You're tuned in to Follow Me to Africa Conversations. My guest today is Sam Tita, joining us from Canada. He is sharing real great nuggets from his life, some of the best life learned lessons that you can get. And so before we continue the conversation, I think it is a time for a quick break. We will take that short break and then we'll come back. Don't go away, because we still got a lot for you. Let's take a quick break.
In the 21st century's technological advancement, we all seek opportunities to move and network with the emerging space. Introducing Clevenard blog and event posting. Do you think you have some interesting materials, good content, articles, and stories? Then feel free to publish them on Clevenard blog and events page, just as team of our writers are doing presently. By blogging on Clevenard's blogs and events, you benefit from our reach and network. There are constant stream of people visiting our social platform, and we have figured out just how to distribute our contents. This means you can basically skip the line and get access to a big audience from day one. Furthermore, we can help you get in touch with important people for projects with possibilities of translating your content into other languages and republishing them on Clevenard. This helps preserve and protect your content from getting lost. What's more, you also get to be part of our team with access to our network and lots of exclusives, behind-the-scenes information. And of course, you get full credit for everything you do, which brings you popularity and make extra income. Sign up now on clevenard.com and start blogging to your advantage. Please see the tutorial video on how to blog or post events on Clevenard blogs and events. For more information, contact info@clevenard.com +34 631 279811. Website www.clevenard.com. Clevenard, your blogs, your identity.
Welcome back to Follow Me to Africa conversation series. You are tuned into this incredible series where we take you to Africa. We spotlight Africans who are doing incredible work, whose life journey is full of lessons that we can learn from, and who challenge us to never settle and to make sure that we always seek to identify, embrace, celebrate, and grow our greatness. So my guest today is Sam Tita, joining us all the way from Canada. He's an entrepreneur. He's a serial author. He's a parent. He's a husband. He is a grandparent. He is everything that you can think of. He's a executive trainer and coach, and he's a preacher. So we have the whole package in the house today. Sam, how are you feeling?
Feeling very good, and I'm so glad and honored that you would invite me to your platform. You know, following you to Africa, once I discovered the things you were doing, and then you reached out to me. My goodness, I was so flattered. So I'm glad to be here.
I knew I was going to come after you. Somehow I needed to have something to come after you. So now that we're talking about Follow Me to Africa, you're still in Canada, but you have your feet in Africa. And that's why we are having this conversation, in as much as I admire and love and appreciate and celebrate the work that you do there. The one that touches my heart is the one that is done on the continent. So, and you are here. You're here. Tell us about your African vision and where you are right now. What is it that you're doing on your Follow Me to Africa journey?
Wow, yes. So, many years ago, this is 25 years thereabouts. Naomi and I, of course, I've mentioned to you off camera, my wife, Naomi, we're married 33 years now. She's from Guyana, South America. And,
congratulations.
Thank you. She, when we talked about Africa, it was not a hard sell at all. We gathered the children way back then. We were maybe in our mid-20s, went there, lived in Cameroon for it was supposed to be 3-4 months. We ended up spending about 3+ years down there. And when we were there, we did business, tried a few things. And again, being the impatient young man that I was, it wasn't that the things we were doing there were not making money. It's that they were not making money as quickly as I wanted them to. So after a few years, we packed up, came back to Canada, and then kind of just focused on building in Canada. But today, what we do is, with my eyes wide open about the Africa that we were told, we were taught, we continue to be told and taught, Africa has absolutely nothing desirable. What an absolute lie. okay? Everything we need is in Africa. And the funny thing is, the whole world knows this, and that's why they're running down there. But if you speak to the average African person, I have friends here doing very well from Cameroon, from Nigeria, and other places. They want absolutely nothing to do with our continent. And yet, we have the Japanese, the Chinese, the Canadians, the Americans, the English, the French, the Spanish. They're all flocking down there, all right? So I decided, Naomi and I, we decided that, you know what? We may have missed the internet boom. We didn't invest in Microsoft and Google back in the day and all of this stuff, and we missed out, okay? We're not going to miss out on claiming what is ours this time around. There was the first mad rush for Africa. There is this new and frenzied rush for Africa, and we are not going to stand on the sidelines and allow the world to come in and take and continue to take what belongs to us. So we decided we were going to get in there. And when you land in Africa, I mean, look at the statistics. The largest concentration of millennials, of young people, that's the labor force that everybody in the world is looking for. Natural resources are there. Education, I mean, there's the level of education, the number of people who are educated, it just continues to grow. And so we have the labor force, we have the resources. Things are still actually affordable to do in Cameroon and in Africa and other parts of Africa. So we decided, even here, we're going to transfer some of our staff that work here. We would establish offices back in Cameroon so that the technologies exist now as well. So you can literally call a Canadian client, a North American client can make a phone call. It'll be answered by our office in Cameroon, and they will patch that call to me or to any of our other people across Canada or in Cameroon, and you wouldn't even know the difference, all right? So with all of those technologies available and the things that we do, we are in Cameroon now. And we set up our first office in Boya, doing the things that we're doing there. But I think it's going to be wonderful because we're going to multiply those that particular brand, Enrich Hub. We're going to multiply it across the country. But the project that I think for Naomi and I is a legacy project is the one where we've acquired 140 acres of land right along the waterfront. The plan is to build a modern city there. I mean, of course, when I say city, I mean a mini city, but it's going to be a multi-use project, you know, some commercial, a bit of industrial, and plenty of residential and entertainment resort. We're going to do organic farming there as well, so that we have supplies and for the resort, but also that we can take to market, and to we're going to build it up in such a way that anyone who wants to come back home, because you see, one of the things that the troubles people have is having organizations and institutions that they can rely on. So if you buy land, for instance, are you really sure that you own that piece of land? We want to set up systems as you find in other places like Rwanda, Kenya, Ghana, even some in Nigeria and other parts of Africa, where you can be here, buy a home back there at home, and slowly begin to repatriate and to plan to come back and to have a place that is comfortable, that kind of thing. So we're trying to build, when we build this this place, the hope is that it serves as an example that others can emulate, especially in Cameroon, because in places like Nigeria and Ghana and Kenya and South Africa, they've been doing this. We want to make sure that in Cameroon, we create an example that others can use. And then those in the diaspora would find it a lot easier to return home, to invest back there and to return there. Because, a lot of people have gotten used to a certain way of living, and they don't necessarily want that way of living to change drastically. They want their phones to work. They want to have, electricity. They want to have internet. They want to drive a car to the office and that kind of thing. We want to be able to create those environments. But something you said in one of our conversations, we have to be very careful, very intentional, that we're not simply trying to replicate downtown Los Angeles or downtown London. We're going to build, because we have the privilege of working with an environment that is still virgin. So we are going to build and design and build it in a way that will be very, very environmentally conscious. So even our electricity is going to be solar powered. We're going to be very careful about organic farming, not polluting the land with terrible so-called fertilizers that do more damage to the food and to the soil and to the water systems than, the long-term negative effects are better than the short-term gains that may seem to be possible. So we're being very intentional. But those are some of the things that we're doing right now in Cameroon. We've acquired the land, and we're at the stage right now where we're going to be designing and then begin to share with the rest of those of us in the diaspora. So Clevnard TV is definitely going to be a place we're going to be visiting again soon.
That's right. That's right. So I really love that project, and it is, I'm smiling when you were speaking. I was smiling because it's like we all dreaming of the same thing. When you've been out and you've seen how the environment functions there, how things function, and you come back, you are better positioned to be able to filter, to create the best out of the two worlds that that can change lives, but at the same time offer people the comfort that they may need or that they may be used to. And I think that is one of the key things that those of us returning could actually do. So I'm hoping that that project would not just stay in Cameroon, but that it will expand and multiply and get to where I am, if whichever way that we do that. So I'm grateful and thankful that you have started back home and that you have that vision. Congratulations. To those who are still out, who are still unsure, I would like to go back home, but someday, but I don't know. And then you wait, and then you get on retirement, and then you realize the energies are no longer there. And then you want to come back and you realize, okay, my pension scheme is somewhere else. You have everything else that keeps you away. And then you end up in a retirement home being taken care of foreign people, people who don't know your real need, and in an environment that doesn't sustain you the way you grow up in a community, when you grow up in an African community. So the kind of people, those people who are still wondering and still kind of being unsure about returning, what will you tell them?
Oh my goodness, so much. Number one is, please, I beg you, see me on my knees. I beg you, come back home. For one, this is the first reason. Number one is we need to build our continent. It doesn't matter whether you're from Cameroon, here you are in Sao Tome and doing very well there. It doesn't matter what part of Africa you go to, but go. Because this is the thing, and we can approach it from so many places, Beatrice. Number one is this. If Africa needs the power of her children. Africa needs all of our contributions. Africa needs our voices. Okay, that's number one. The reason that racism, anti-Black racism, is pervasive around the world, it goes back to Africa, because the world right now, the narrative that has been spun about Africa to the world is one that has disempowered the people of Africa in the eyes of everybody else. So even though you are a Black person in Brazil, a Black person in America, a Black person in Australia, the reason you are feeling the racism towards you goes back to how the world perceives Africa, because it doesn't matter where you are or you try to delude yourself. If you are Black, like Peter Tosh said, it doesn't matter where you come from. As long as you're a Black man, you are an African. So wherever they are in the world that are watching you, it is the perception they have of Africa that is causing them to see you as they see you. when they begin to respect Africa for what it is, for who we are, you will see the domino effect all over the world. Black people everywhere will begin to be perceived differently. Okay, so we need all of Africa's power, voice, resources speaking with one voice in Africa. Why do you think China has maybe a little bit more people than Africa? I don't even think so. Africa has over about 1.3, 1.4 billion people right now. It is a huge voice, but that voice is so broken up because of so many different separating lines that when they had when they partitioned Africa, they just caused a total mess. Africa is in the situation it's in today, not because we don't have entrepreneurial people, not because we don't have intelligent people. It is because of the mess that we were put in and continue to be put in. All right. So please bring your resources to Africa, because this is one thing. Please listen to this. I have used this as an analogy for some time. If there was a meteor that was shooting down towards Earth today, and there was no place else that they could direct it to so that the rest of the world would be fine. If this thing was so big, it was so catastrophic. I'm telling you this, the Americans, the Europeans, everybody, the Chinese, they would call themselves into a meeting and they would say, let's send it to Africa. I'm telling you, all right? Until we are able to build our own defense systems, we're able to fend for ourselves. Stop expecting the Americans and the Europeans and everybody else to do it for us. Until we're able to do it for ourselves, our lives are in jeopardy. We are at the mercy of everybody else. And that makes me sick to my stomach, because I see the people that are out here, the people who think they're better than you and me. I hear them, I see them, and I'm thinking, you seriously? So until we get smart, we are at the mercy of the rest of the world. So if you're an African and you delude yourself that because you're a medical doctor in America and you have the biggest house in the neighborhood and you have a lot of money in your bank account, let me tell you, you will never ever be seen as the equal of a Caucasian person. Never. Okay? Because the perception of your people in Africa is that you are nobodies. Your parents and your foreparents were absolutely nobodies. So that's the one thing. Bring your resources to Africa. And then the other thing is, for anything that you can do in the United States or in Europe, you can do it so much more easily, so much more cost effectively in Africa. All right? And that is why, guess what? Microsoft is in Africa heavy. Google is doing big things in Africa. Twitter was in Africa until Elon Musk took it over. But guess what? They're going to go back. All right? They just shut down the offices in Nigeria. Jack Ma, who is the founder of Alibaba, he is in Africa all the time. As a matter of fact, he offers a technology scholarship to African companies competing. You think these guys are doing that because they're just nice, charitable guys?
Let me inject something there. They're not doing well. They're ending a lot of money on the continent. We have to put it that way. They're making a lot of money. I recently saw, a couple of years, an interview by a Coca-Cola CEO who said that the money that they make in Africa is more than all the monies that they're making across all the other continents put together.
Wow.
Meaning we are paying the CEO's salary and many others. We pay because all the luxury brands are here anyway. So that conversation around the fact that we're poor, I keep asking people, do you think all these brands will be around if there was no money here? So I think we are running out of time, and the conversation is really, really heated. And I know that we're certainly going to come back on this. What you say, bring your resources back home, because if you don't, someone will take your space. They will claim and own your space, and before you realize, you'll be a stranger everywhere, abroad and at home. So that's one thing that we need to bear in mind, if not for you, for your children and for your grandchildren. So I will want to take us slowly to the end of the conversation, you have a book. I'd like you to show us the book that you had before, your most recent book, because we're going to come back to that conversation, right? So people look at that book. If you want to know Black Truth and what Sam Tita has in this book, they are really, really very deep line messages. You have to watch out for the next conversation, which will be announced soon. So you tune in to Follow Me to Africa Conversations, and my guest today is my former schoolmate, Mr. Sam Tita, who is doing amazing work in Canada and also in Cameroon, but also across the globe. So Sam, if this was your last minute, what will you do? What will you say, and why? Keep it short.
My goodness, that's a loaded question. I would just encourage people to come back home. What we have down there, it is so beautiful, natural. And like you said, if we don't do it, everybody else is coming there. You're going to find yourself returning to a place that you own, that you grew up in, and it'll be owned by everybody else. The cultures are going to be changed because that's what happens. You're going to miss out on the things that you knew growing up. So if I had just one thing to say, I would say it is time. This is the time to follow and go back to Africa. Let's develop this place together. Let's give ourselves the voice and the bring our insert ourselves in the dominant conversation that has so misrepresented who we actually are.
Insert ourselves in the dominant conversation so that we can create the Africa that we want to see by 2063, says the African Union. And I think it starts by us knowing, owning, and driving that Africa. And you and I are invited to bring our resources and our children and our friends to build that Africa. So this is the first edition of the Follow Me to Africa Conversations in 2023. We hope that you took along as much as I took from my guest, Sam Tita. And as you could hear, this conversation is to be continued because there is so much more that we think that we can learn from Sam Tita, and especially from the book. So you want to make sure that you watch out for the next conversation. Our next Follow Me to Africa Conversations takes place on Friday next week. So we're on every Friday at 5 p.m. GMT, and that should be about calculate that for your time period, because I'm more interested in my African time zone. So you want to calculate that for your time, but otherwise you can check out the flyers that we're putting out for our next conversations. And if you have not signed up on cliffnot.com, make sure that you do that today, because that's the space where we need to be if we are coming back home and doing the things that we promise ourselves that we'll do. My name is Anqueta Beatrice Achaleke. I was delighted to be your host, and I'll see you in the next conversation. Thank you very much.